Alright, so this is day one of my 30-day project. Basically, my project's about my car. It's behind me. It's a 1978 Datsun 280Z. And kind of wanted to do an introduction because I've had this car for about 4 months. I think is how long I've been working on it. And I want to do an intro, kind of where I'm at on it, what I have done already. My 30-day project is kind of going to be on electrical and a little bit of mechanical stuff. My 2 books, I got the first one is an automotive electrical handbook. It's by Jim Horner, and that's just going to show me base electrical on what I got to do to my car. And second book I got, this is going to be for all my mechanical stuff. So it's called a Datsun Z V8 conversion manual by JTR Publishing, and so yeah, that's just going to show me all my mechanical stuff. Basically, it was a inline 6-cylinder fuel injected motor from the factory, and I'm throwing a carbureted Chevy 350, which is a V8 motor, into it. So that's kind of been my project, and my 30-day project is kind of teaching myself electrical because I've never done it before on a car. No big restorations like this. I've never done electrical like that, and putting new parts in and just a bunch of conversion stuff. So that's kind of what I'm going to teach you. I'm going to flip the camera around real quick and show you kind of where I've been at. Alright, so basically this is the car I'm working with, kind of a little bit better picture. I know the garage is kind of a mess, but like I said, 1978 Datsun 280Z. This is the Chevy 350. Now this one right here, that's painted red, this was completely rebuilt. This one's out of a 73 Chevrolet Blazer. And another thing I did for this car, I bought a 1992 Camaro for parts. I pulled that transmission with that motor out of it. But I found this motor is a little bit better of a deal, so I bought this one. Took the old heads off this one, put the heads from there onto here, then got all these rebuilt, put these old heads onto that Camaro motor. Put the Camaro transmission on the back of this motor. I got everything repainted. Transmission I did myself. Intake I did myself. I got valve covers. And yeah, some other stuff I did. I took the old motor out of here, which like I said was the 6-cylinder. Took all the wires, pulled them all the way back through the car, had a completely stripped engine bay, painted the entire thing black, pulled all the rest of the wires through. Now I got to go through and sort, which I'm going to use my book for. All these wires, there's look like there's a million of them, and for that motor I need about a total of about 10 electrical wires. So this is kind of the background and start to my project, so you're all caught up.
So we got week number 1. This is going to be my first check-in of my 30-day project. So the first one I'm going to go off of is my Datsun V8 conversion manual. And this is chapter 2, page 6 of chapter 2 is how they number it, pages per chapter. So the first thing I did this week, I'll show everything that I did. I wasn't able to film because it's been just me, and wrenching on all this is kind of hard to film, but I'll show everything I had to do and the parts that are put in now. So I put spacers in. So with the big motor that I was telling about before, it takes up a lot of space, so I kind of have to move like the front cross member, and so I'm kind of going to show the part I used to do it and what I had to move. And these are just 2 little spacers. That's going to put the front cross member down. I believe it's about 3/4 of an inch. Alright, so let me flip the camera around. Alright, so this is the page I was working on. It kind of shows you, this is what the spacer looks like. This is just a little bit of instruction, kind of where I'm doing it, what I'm moving stuff to. So kind of why I wasn't able to film, I had to disconnect the entire steering column, which is this right here. Both my control arms, this entire rack had to come up. This entire rack right here, the entire thing has to be dropped by the spacers on each side. So the spacers, what I actually had to install, I had to drop all those parts just to install that little red spacer. You got longer bolts, and basically all my tie rods, control arms, sway bars right here, stuff like that, all had to come out and disconnect to just get those little plates in. And again, that's going to help me drop the motor, and it's going to make my hood close just like it would back from the factory. Alright, so we're in about the middle of week 2 now, and it's time for spacers and setback plates. So again, with the different motor, it has to sit back in the engine compartment because it's not as long, but it also has to sit a little bit farther from the walls, which is what the spacers are for, because it's wider than the original motor. And again, back to my conversion manual, we have the spacers, which are going to tell me where they go, and more pictures. And this is chapters 2, page 3, chapter 3, page 11. And this is pretty much what the motor has to look like before it goes in. And I'm going off these little diagrams right here. Alright, so that's basically what's getting installed, and let's get to it. Alright, so this is what I've been planning on doing for week 2, and it's just about done. So basically I got all my spacers, setback plates. I got one of the motor mounts on, the other one is on back order at AutoZone, so that one's not on yet, but one of them is bolted on. And so let me flip the camera around and show what it looks like. Alright, so this is the end of week 2 progress. What I showed a quick video of this. This is a fuel pump block-off plate from the factory. There's a fuel pump that goes there, but in a later on video I'm going to show you why that's not necessary anymore. That'll be part of electrical. So right here's the spacer that goes to the setback plate, which is going to move the motor backwards, and the motor mount, which is going to hook the motor to the frame. Same thing on the other side, setback plate and spacer, which are switched around because it has to be in a different order to clear the steering rack. And so yeah, that's week 2. So this is week 3 of the 30-day project, and finally we get to be inside. So this week and my final of next week is going to be my electrical. And electrical this week is mainly setup and book stuff and learning it, because it's a lot harder than mechanical, and there's just a lot of concepts I gotta grab. So the first one is going to be basically my wiring diagrams, and what I use is, now I'm in my Automotive Electrical Handbook by Jim Horner, and I'm in chapter 10, page 82. So the first thing I started using in this book that I didn't think I would actually use was how to wire my own wiring diagram so I could understand it myself. And this has things like just how to wire fuses, grounds, and just makes it a lot easier when you go into the process. That's kind of what I'm doing all week, is figuring out how I do it, so I'm not stuck and messing with a bunch of different wires while I'm in the car. So let me flip it around and show you kind of myself. So this is the startup that I've had, that I'm just starting out with. And so this is my book, and this is a page on how to wire, and it shows you kind of how to wire grounds, how to show fuses and wirings. And in my book, on what I'm actually going to use, I have them highlighted: installing and making my own harness, which is going to be here, and then installing components and drawing diagrams. So how I drew this was basically my switch right here, my main power, start, and 3 accessories. So how this is going to be wired is my main power switch. It's going to go on. If I flip this, it's going to go to my fuel pump, puts fuel through the motor. Flip this is going to go to headlights, and then my third, I'm undecided, that can really be anything I want it to. And then, but all these go through a relay, which is shown in my relay wiring diagram. and the relay is just so nothing is going to get messed up in the car or shorted out. My main power, when I turn it on, is going to go to my distributor, and that's basically what's going to give spark to my engine and make the whole thing ignite. So this is my wiring diagram, and everything is set up, so when I go into week 4 I should be able to get it done. So week 4 is finally complete. I just finished the wiring of my switch, and right now I got a wire into my headlights and a wire into my fuel pump. I didn't get the distributor hooked up, which is the main power, because I don't have the motor in the car and the distributor goes on the motor. So I'm going to show you guys the wiring setup and how I did everything, and that'll be it. Alright, so it did help a little bit that I already have most of the interior apart. But basically, so this is the fuse panel that I put into the car. And the main switch, which is the last silver one, doesn't have anything because, like I said, the distributor goes on the motor and the distributor isn't in the car. Then I have these 3. The black has a bunch of extra because that's the one I haven't decided where I'm going to go with it, so I just put all the wire in the back. The red wire right here is what goes to the fuel pump, which is in the back, and I'll show you that all mounted up right next to the gas tank. And the blue one goes up and around over to where the old, and that's the relay that got hooked up. It goes over to the headlights, which is the entire cluster of the steering wheel. And so let's check out the fuel pump. Alright, so on the ground right now, my fuel pump is all wired in, and that's it in. This was definitely probably the hardest part of the project because I had to get under the car, and just kind of give you a reference, I can't stand the iPad up completely straight to show you everything under the car. This is about what I had to work with to get under, and it has to be mounted right next to the fuel tank.